All right, welcome to lesson 2 video this week. My name is Billy Bob, and we'll be going through how to record an audio in our digital audio workstation. And today I'm going to be using Pro Tools, and we're going to start by prepping the project, which actually takes the most time. Then we'll move on to, once we get everything kind of set up, we'll go on to creating a track, setting up a click and count off, and then going over a few pointers to recording efficiently. So let's first get started by pulling open Pro Tools here. So I've already kind of got it running in the background, but we'll go ahead and open up Pro Tools, go to File, and we're going to do a new session and kind of start from the beginning. And so as we kind of learned in the video, with each DAW you have some options that you can choose from. Here we're going to create a blank session. And we're going to choose the BWF file. We're going to go with a bit depth of 24 bits. We're going to interleave the left and right. And here we're going to adjust the sample rate to, actually, what we're going to do here, because of our audio input, we're going to leave it at 44.1 kilohertz. In the training, we did learn that it's recommended to go through 48, to use a sample rate of 48 kilohertz. But unfortunately, I'm not completely well versed in Pro Tools, and so it actually took me quite some time just to get the microphone that I'm using set up correctly. So anyways, just making note there. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and we'll go ahead and title a lesson 2 session. Go ahead and choose. We'll go ahead and just stick it in documents here. So as it brings up the initial Pro Tools window, like I said, I had a little bit of trouble connecting the audio, so I'm going to walk through just that real quick, because that is a lot about prepping the project, is actually being able to get the settings correct, and most importantly, just simply being able to set up an audio path to be able to record a track. So on a Mac, you actually have to go into what's called the Audio MIDI setup, which can be found in the Finder, under Applications, under the Utilities folder, and you see it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that because I do already have the device open. And you can see that I'm using an Apogee mic. MIC is the name of the product. It's actually a 96 kilohertz product. And you can see right here, this is where I had the sample rate. I actually thought, it would be fairly straightforward. You just click the drop down and change to 48 kilohertz. But I couldn't seem to quite get that to work. So, like I said, we've got it working where you come in here, you hit New, the New button, and create a Pro Tools Aggregate I/O. And you enable the built-in input, built-in output, as well as the Mic 96, which is the audio device we're using here. So once you do that, in this particular DAW, again using Pro Tools 11, this is a trial version, so I actually don't own an official copy here, but this is the trial version they let me pull down. The next thing you have to do is go into Setup, and the first thing you want to do is go into Playback Engine, and make sure that you have the Pro Tools Aggregate I/O that you set up in the Audio MIDI setup chosen. And this is where we're going to go with, because we're recording, we're going to go with a hardware buffer size of 64 samples, which was what was recommended in the coursework. So you hit OK, and so that's the playback engine. And the final step you have to do before you add an audio track here is you go to Setup, I/O, and you have to enter a new path under Input. So you go to the Input tab, you hit New Path, hit Create, and you can see I already had it there, but you would come in here, name it Mic, and then you could assign it, a channel here. I'm going to go ahead and delete this just because I already had it set up, so I didn't want to change anything. But that's how you would go about doing that. So now you've prepped the project. You have your settings set up from your bit depth, your file type, your sample rate. So we're ready to record. And so now we have to get into creating a track. In Pro Tools 11, it's fairly straightforward. You simply go to Track, New, and typically it's going to populate what you're looking for. In this case, we're going to record one mono audio track because the microphone that I'm using is a mono device. So we hit Create, and you'll see that it's loaded up here for us. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name real quick to microphone. Very unique, I know. But I think that was one thing that they actually wanted us to practice, is kind of naming these so that when you record the initial audio file, it captures it with the correct name. And so we've named it microphone. Now we need to select the interface. You could see that before we defaulted here, it defaulted kind of to what we already wanted, but you always need to make sure. This was the one thing that kind of had me chasing my tail again, not being completely familiar with Pro Tools and using it. It took me a little while to figure this out. But this is your I/O, and this is your input on top. And so, yeah, you choose interface and mic, which we've already done. If there were multiple inputs, then they would be listed in a long list here. But in our case, we only have one input, remembering that we're using that Pro Tools aggregate I/O that we created. And then output. Output is just you want to use your standard output stereo, so that when you go to play this back, you're going to have, you'll be able to hear it through your computer speakers. So we've created the track. One of the other things that we want to try to do is create a click or count off. And so because I'm using a microphone, I want to be careful of using the click while I'm actually recording. I'm going to do just kind of a real brief strumming on a guitar and kind of singing into the microphone. And so we don't want that click in the background of our audio. And so in our case, we're going to just simply use the click to count off the song. Now you won't actually end up hearing the click, mainly for two reasons. One, we're only going to use it on the count off, but for the other reason, let me show you real quick. So enable the click. To enable the click, you have to come to Options, and then you're going to scroll down and make sure that click is checked. And then you're going to go into Setup, click count off. And this is where you have various options that you can use to have the click going while during play and record, only during record, and then only during count off, which is what we're going to use. Now I mentioned that you won't hear it for two reasons. One, because it says only during count off, so it won't record that piece of it. But two, again, I'm using, and this is something that I had to chase my tail on a little bit because, again, it's a Pro Tools trial version. The output here would normally be selected. You would have options here to kind of select what type of click noise you want. But because I don't have any expansion packs or plugins for this trial version of Pro Tools, it was none. And so it took me a while and quite a bit of Googling to figure that out. But if I did have, again, the expansion pack, it would come in here, and I would be able to come in here and choose a certain sound for my click noise. And then again, finally for count off, you can specify how many bars you would like to use during the count off of the how many bars you want to do for a count off. It looks like the standard is 2 bars, and as I started kind of using it, it made a lot of sense in terms of giving you a chance to kind of get ready, especially if you're doing something kind of live like we're going to do here. So at this point, we've prepared the project, we've created a track, we've set up our click count off. Now the final piece is making sure that we're able to record efficiently. And if you recall from the lectures that we had, one of the main things that we're trying to do here is to make sure that we don't distort the audio. And so in order to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is simply enable the microphone so that it begins to pick up my voice. So you can see as I'm talking, the decibel meter is kind of bouncing up and down here as I speak. Now, I'm going to strum on my guitar, and if you'll notice, if you'll watch that, it never goes into the red area. And so I've set up the gain on the microphone itself so that as I strum kind of in one of the louder parts of the song, we don't ever clip the actual audio. And so that'll make sure that we record an efficient sound. We can get enough of the audio, but we can come back and reduce the volume if need be. But we don't hopefully if I don't get too excited playing the song here, it won't distort the signal. So without further ado, let me play a brief recording here. And so to record the audio, so we enabled the track, and that allowed us to kind of set some of the volumes here. To actually begin recording in Pro Tools, you have to come down to this main counter window, and again, I don't know the exact terminology for this, but you come down here, hit the record button, and then as soon as you hit play, you'll be ready to go. There is nothing that is wrong in wanting you to stay here with me. I know you got somewhere to go, but won't you make yourself at home and stay with me? And don't you ever leave. Lay down silent and rest you in my arms. Don't you think you want someone to talk to? Lay down silent, no need to leave so soon. I've been trying all night long to talk to you. All right, so once we finish the recording, we'll hit stop. And let's just take a quick listen and see how it turned out. So we'll disable the track. I did notice actually as I was playing, the microphone has a light on it, and it did look like I may have had the gain a little bit too high. So in the future I'd probably play a little bit more as I went through and set up, just to make sure that you don't distort any portion of the song. Let's take a quick listen here. There is nothing that is wrong in wanting you to stay. All right, sounds like it recorded okay. Well, appreciate you guys listening in. Sorry it went a little bit long here, but what we learned today is how to record an audio track in a DAW. And in this particular example, we learned Pro Tools, how to prep a project, create a track, setting the click and count off, as recording efficiently. Thank you.